Every photographer wants the light to be perfect, and if you're watching this, you might be in that camp. Well, there are tons of ways to get a perfect light exposure. Here is the old school, it works every single time. I don't have to think, way to get a correctly exposed picture using a light meter. But why use a light meter? Well, every old school photographer will tell you why. It just works. You can guesstimate using your camera's histogram the correct exposure. Sure, but with one click of a button, you can know the measure of either speed, aperture, and also ISO. And if you have any other artificial lighting, it takes care of that also. So let's keep this video very simple. At the end of this video, you'll be able to comfortably use a light meter in a studio-controlled environment with, of course, practice, and look like a pro. The big benefit of using a light meter in a studio environment is that it's going to give you a consistent look throughout your portrait session. And the great thing about this light meter in particular is that if your work scrolls more than photography or more than flash, it also does video. We'll be using, in this case, the Sekonic L478D. So the first thing I want you to do is first to set up all your lights the way you think you'll use it. So go ahead, make a mess, have fun. But if you want some inspiration, you can always take a look at my Instagram profile and take inspiration out of the many behind the scenes I shot throughout the years and go from there. So once your lights are set up, take note of all the light letters. For example, in this case, I'm using a 3-light setup using 2 Godox 8400s and a single 8300 Pro, which can cause an issue if you don't know the power levels. My main light are A, and the kickers are C and D. Now that I have something that I like, it's time to move on to the second phase. What do I want? So for this portrait, I really want an aperture of f8 to get a deeper focus. I also want a shutter of 1/200th of a second for a natural sync speed. Plus, it also kills all the ambient light, which is really useful. And an ISO of 100 for a very clean file. In order to get there, first I'll shut off all the kickers and focus on getting my main light extra perfect. On the Sekonic, and because I know exactly what I want out of my camera, as I said, I want a shutter of 200 and an ISO of 100. I'm gonna pick T as my basis because I know exactly what I want. And after pressing T, which is the equivalent of shutter, I'm gonna press the little lighting sign just because it's for my flash. And on the menu, you can see that I have 200 in terms of shutter. And I have ISO 100 in terms of ISO, of course. Flash is really best measured, of course, with the aperture metric, so go ahead and use that. So because everything is already set up, I can actually take one exposure using my light meter. How do I do that? I simply press the measure button on the right side of the meter, and also I'm triggering my lights using the Godox remote control. And it's very important in that case that the meter or the white bulb is actually facing the light and not the subject. This meter or this white bulb will simply let you know how much light is being thrown at this specific spot. According to the Sekonic, the white bulb is technically called a lumidisc or sometimes called a lumisphere for the nerds out there, but it depends on the brand and let's not get into that. Now that I know how much is my first reading and how much power I'm getting from this main light, I can actually adjust and remeasure until it hits a perfect f8. And now the kickers. I could have made my life simply by using both 8400 Pros, but I like my life complicated. And because both right and left lights are different models, of course, they emit different powers. The concept of this portrait session was to have extra hard highlights. So they needed to be about one stop higher in order to get them perfectly balanced. And once again, I used the Sekonic to measure the highlights on the subject. This time, I worked in reverse. I opened the 8400 Pro and had it set to something I really liked in terms of looks. I measured the amount of light using the Sekonic on the white bulb on camera right, and this reading gave me the basis of power I needed to adjust my left light. With the data that the 8400 Pro gave me, I then moved on to the 8300 Pro and I measured the 8300 Pro until it reached the same aperture level as the 8400 Pro. In that case, the highlight had to be 9/10 of a stop higher to reach the same level of aperture. This is an extra step, of course, so feel free to ignore it, but I typically like to remeasure everything once more to make sure I didn't click or accidentally change any values using the remote. This gave me a good chance to talk to my subject and get to know him better, so it's a win-win in all cases. So with this video, you should be able to measure your light like a pro. I made another video on how to achieve perfectly shaped lighting using a very simple technique, so if you're interested into that, please check out at the same time this video. It's going to help you a lot. This has been YvensB for the Sharpen channel, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.